Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Corey Deharsh, and I work with Advanta IRA. We are here to bring you a great educational webinar on investing with other people's property through rental arbitrage. My guest speaker today is Aiden Browning. He is an avid real estate investor in the Asheville, North Carolina area. He's an owner of Ridgetop Rentals 828. Aiden, thank you very much for joining me today. I know we've bumped elbows at the local Real Estate Investor Association, and you've got this great area and niche of investing I'm really happy to bring to our audience and just share some of your knowledge and expertise. So thank you so much for coordinating this with me.
Yeah, thank you, Corey.
All right. So just for the audience, I'm going to give you a brief description of our agenda. I'm going to cover some stuff on the top about what a self-directed retirement account is and how you can use it for real estate investing. I'll kind of hyper focus on the arbitrage usage and some considerations you should have. And then I'm going to turn over to Aiden. He's going to speak to the effect of how he uses arbitrage investing for short-term rentals. And then we'll answer your questions at the end as well. But if you have questions as we're going, just so you know, the audience is muted through the duration, but you have a questions box on your GoToWebinar panel. Please type those in. As long as they relate to the topics at hand as we're going, we'll address them and answer them as we go. Or again, we'll kind of have a final conclusion Q&A at the end as well. For those of you either watching the recording or watching live that also would like a copy of today's presentation, you can email Aiden or I, and we will send you a PDF copy if that's something of interest to you. Before we get too far into anything specific, I do want to share that Advanta is only here to provide educational information, as is Aiden. This is all strictly educational materials and purposes. Please consult your own attorneys, CPAs, professionals before engaging in any specific investment. So please do your own due diligence at all times. We're just here to bring you some education and information. What you do with it, it's completely up to you as a retirement investor or a real estate investor, maybe not using your retirement account, but learning more about arbitrage today. Advanta IRA has been around for about 20 years. This is our 20th year in 2023 right now. We've got a little over 11,000, maybe 12,000 active clients and just over $2.5 billion in assets under management. Each of our clients gets paired with a dedicated client account manager. So when you have an account with us, you have a go-to person, not a whole wirehouse call center. If you have questions, if you have a transaction you'd like to do, you really get to establish comfortability with your go-to person, and they also in turn get comfortability with you. I served in that role for about 5 years, and it's a great way for you to not have to feel like you're calling and having to explain who you are and what you're doing to a new person every time you want to do something with your retirement account. So what is a self-directed IRA? In itself, it's a retirement account that lets you invest into any asset class you would really like to, notwithstanding a few simple limitations, which I'll get into in a few slides. But basically, you can use your retirement account to invest into alternative assets. Those are things outside of the traditional stocks, bonds, and mutual funds most people are familiar with. We've got a few asset classes here outlined just for example purpose. And again, I'll in a few slides go over the specific rules as to what you can and cannot invest into and how to use these accounts. If you've never heard about a self-directed account, that's perfectly common and normal. Only about 4% of US-based retirement accounts are self-directed. So in the grand scheme of things, the US-based retirement system has about $40 trillion in it. That's trillion with a T. And 4% is really only about 1.5 trillion. So not a lot of people know about these opportunities and account types to be taking advantage of them. And that's why Advanta IRA is out here trying to promote and really expand the knowledge of the general public that you can take matters into your own hands more directly for your retirement investments. Now, the types of accounts that can be self-directed are pretty much all of the accounts that the US retirement system offers. If you have a certain type of account with a employer, you typically roll those funds into another type of plan. That's part of my job, is to hear what types of plans you have and help you get the transition into a self-direct account. But in general, your traditional and Roth IRAs are accounts that most people are familiar with. If you're a small business owner, then you may be subject to having a better qualification for a simple, a SEP, or a solo 401k plan. And then we also offer health savings and education savings accounts that can be self-directed if you're interested in either of those products as well. Really briefly, I just want to explain how simple it is to get funds moved into these types of accounts. If you're moving from one type of account into the same type of an account with a self-directed administrator, that's considered a custodian to custodian transfer. That's facilitated just by filling out one form with the company you wish to receive the funds. That company sends that to the group that has your funds currently, and it's usually facilitated within roughly a week or so, give or take. The other way to move these funds is by what's called a rollover, in most cases a direct rollover. So you initiate a distribution out of your current plan, which may be a previous employer plan, so a job you've left or a job that you're eligible to pull money out of their employer-sponsored plan, and you have those funds sent directly into your new retirement account. In any case I'm describing here, it is a non-taxable event. So there's no tax ramifications or implications when you do this. The only capacity you'd ever see a tax event take place is if you choose to go from a traditional, which is a tax deferred account, to a Roth, which is a post-tax account. That in itself is something for you and your tax preparer to speak about, because it may be a good time for you to do that Roth conversion. It may not. That's not something that we can really speak to here. We can definitely answer questions about that process and protocol, but the actual guidance or advice from a tax perspective, as I mentioned earlier, is something between you and your appropriate professional. But all in all, you're looking at starting an account and moving funds over. It'll take you roughly a week to a week and a half conservatively to get that all accomplished. Now, as I referenced earlier, it's very simple to outline for you how you can and cannot invest with these accounts. As far as asset classes and types of investments, the only stopping points that the IRS puts out are that you cannot invest into a life insurance policy with your account, or hard to value collectibles like antiques, fine wine, artwork, things like that. The other way that the IRS restricts these accounts are by labeling certain individuals disqualified persons. Those are basically your parents, your children, yourself, and your spouse, or any businesses those people own. Those entities or those persons, those disqualified persons, are prohibited from conducting deals with your retirement account where they basically sit on the other side of the table, or you're buying something from them or selling something to them or leasing to them. So those are the restrictions there. You can partner with disqualified persons. You can do other types of things with disqualified persons, as long as it's not, as I mentioned and kind of alluded to, sitting on the other side of the table or shaking hands and doing a deal with that disqualified entity or person. UBIT and UDFI taxes don't really apply in today's webinar, but they are just outlined here for general reference. It's unrelated business income tax if you're generating a little bit more than passive income with your retirement account investment, and unrelated debt financed income if you're utilizing leverage. If you have interest in learning more about either of those, we have plenty of content on our website and other educational webinars, or you could just reach me directly and I could put you in the right scope to review that details. Again, this is really just breaking down the disqualified persons a little bit further. I pretty much did that verbally on the last slide, so I'll let you look over this for a second, or if you're watching the recording, you can pause and review this further if needed. It's always important to invest with people you know and build your triad of know, like, trust in the investment world. As I mentioned at the beginning, I know Aiden through our local real estate investor association. It's always good to know people through groups like that and participate, whether you're finding them on Meetup or you're finding them through your local RIA affiliate. Build your network, because self-direction is taking a fiduciary or financial advisor out of the equation in most cases and putting you in that role. You're your own financial advisor with a self-direct account. So make sure you're extremely confident in the deals you're going into and the action plans and the due diligence, and build a good team that's going to help you with that. So very briefly, real estate asset classes. There's a ton of different things you can do with real estate. Again, we're hyper-focusing today on arbitrage real estate investing, which is basically in itself, and I'll let Aiden describe it more thoroughly at his portion of the presentation, but it's you serving as someone that coordinates lease agreements or rental agreements for a property that you may not own. You have a master lease on that property and then sublease it out on either a short-term capacity or a long-term capacity. That's to be determined in your investment strategy. As a retirement account investor, you can either be the retirement account that owns the property and find someone like Aiden that wants to do arbitrage investing, or you, through a checkbook control LLC, potentially could arbitrage invest into other people's properties and have a master lease with a property owner through your retirement account, and then facilitate and coordinate rental agreements and so forth from there, so that you're still paying the rental agreement that you have with the actual property owner, but then you're subleasing that property out to others and ideally generating some income that way. So there's a few different ways that the real estate investor and retirement account investor can kind of merge in this specific scenario. This is really just another slide breaking down the various asset classes and types of properties you can hold through a retirement account. Again, there's various ways to do multiple of these asset classes as arbitrage investments. I'll let Aiden cover that more specifically and definitively in his portion, breaking down how he legitimately and actively arbitrage invests. But I'm going to focus more on some of the rules and regulations in my next few slides as I'm rounding out my portion of the presentation. If you are buying real estate in your retirement account, please understand when you're buying real estate in your retirement account, again, it's completely separate from you. So your name is not going to go on the deed of title. It's going to be the name of your retirement account, the tax ID number for your retirement account. And then from there, all of the income and expenses of that property have to flow in and out of the retirement account directly, not your personal pocket. With paying bills, if you have the property through your retirement account, you can either employ a property manager to handle your day-to-day bills and just send residual income to your retirement custodian or administrator like Advanta, or you can do that directly. We have an online platform that you have access to 24/7 to submit payment requests and see anytime deposits are made into your account. There's different things that you can do with that. As far as managing the property, now keep in mind, this is if you're an arbitrage investor or you have a property that you're looking to let an arbitrage investor utilize. You personally and your disqualified persons, as I referenced earlier, cannot do any of the sweat equity and work. It will only be done by non-disqualified persons. Does not have to be a certified licensed plumber or electrician, as long as it's a handyman or someone that's not in the disqualified capacity, then that's perfectly fine. Renting the property out, it's completely up to you. Whether it's your property or you're the arbitrage investor, you set the terms with the tenants and with the property owners exactly as you want to. We have no grounds or jurisdiction to tell you what terms you set, so it's completely up to you to negotiate those. And real quickly, just breaking down some prohibited transactions for a frame of reference. If your IRA owns real estate, it can't lease it out to your daughter. If your father's IRA lends money to you or your son, that is in itself disqualified. That IRA can't lend to those disqualified persons. If your IRA purchased real estate and hires your son or his company, that is disqualified person doing the sweat equity. That is not allowed. So just a few examples. I'm not going to read all 6 of them here, just to kind of set a frame of reference of how these things work. Again, we put out a lot of educational content. There's some webinars that we do pretty much 2 a week. We have a networking event once a month called Pitch, Promote, Prosper. We have an educational podcast that is hosted by my colleague Alex Perny called the Alternative Investing Advantage Podcast. So check it out. Any content that you don't see in our catalog, you can reach out to us directly and we'll be happy to try to put some of that together. As it relates, I see some questions in here about getting back to the contact information. I will pull that back up at the end of the presentation. You'll receive a copy of this presentation if you're in this session right now live, or for future reference, if you ever sign up for one of our educational webinars and cannot attend live, we email the recording out very next day, and the actual PDF of the slides can be sent out. You just have to email Aiden or I for those. It's really easy to get started. It takes about 15 minutes to complete our application. You can then get your account set up, get it funded within roughly a week and a half or so, and then start investing. Conservatively speaking, within about 2 weeks, as fast as possible. You can really start investing 7 days after your account's opened. Reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. I can answer your questions, and we can kind of set the precedent for what your action plan and self-directed strategy looks like moving forward. And without further ado, Aiden, you can go ahead and unmute. I'm going to turn over to you for your portion of the presentation. I will mute myself until any questions come up to address to you, and I'll just navigate the slides. Just if I'm a little slow, just bump me, just say, hey.
Sweet. Thank you, Corey. That was a great introduction. Can't wait to share with you guys some details about what I do, how I got started in real estate, because this is how I was able to kind of get my foot in the door for real estate, and how it's been working out for me and how it is going right now. So my name is Aiden Browning. I'm a 20-year-old real estate investor in Asheville, Buncombe County. I also own a property up in Boone. I own 4 short-term rentals outright. They're all over town. I have 1 in Hendersonville, I have 1 in Boone, and I have 2 in the Asheville area, and 1 up in Weaverville. Yeah, so I have 5 actually. I also have 4 arbitrage properties all around Buncombe County, 2 in Black Mountain, 1 in Fairview, 1 in Weaverville, and trying to remember where my other one is. That's all 4. Never mind. I had 1 in Oakley, which I'll get to later in the presentation. But let's get a little bit of backstory as to who I am. I was a broke college student. I was down at Florida State University, and I really wanted to do real estate. If you can see in that picture on the presentation, that's my mom. She's been in real estate for the last 25 years. She was an agent, and she got into buying and flipping, and then she tried out Airbnb back in 2014 when it was kind of a new concept on one of her flip projects as it was listed, and it did really well. So she used the money after she flipped that property to purchase and renovate an Airbnb, a small property in Candler, and it knocked it out of the ballpark. So I kind of grew up around kind of Airbnb as it was kind of a big thing as it kind of grew. And she was able to grow her business a lot. And I was really interested in it and decided to start going to Korea with her, and which is the real estate association in Asheville, North Carolina, where I've been fortunate enough to link up with Corey and learn a lot of information, even about arbitrage. This is where I learned how to arbitrage properties. Was a speaker named Melania, who came into town. She's out of the Raleigh, Winston-Salem area, and she came and did about an hour talk at the Real Estate Association, and I kind of ran with it, and here I am today. So what we're going to cover today in arbitrage is the positives and the negatives, because there's a lot on both sides right now. I mean, it's a tough market right now, just where we are in Buncombe County, but it's really affordable to kind of get into the arbitrage market and build a business. I'm going to go over how to find houses that may work for this method. I'm also going to go over running the numbers to see what property is going to work, what property is not going to work, because this is super vital in terms of being able to make sure that a property is going to make sense and if it's going to make money at the end of the day or at the end of the month. Because if it's not going to, you've invested a lot of time, a lot of money, and you have a lease on this property, and you got to be able to pay the rent at the end of the month, and you got to be able to pay all of your expenses at the end of the month or the first of the month. I'm also going to go over how to close a deal. I feel like this is a really important part of the whole aspect that people kind of look over. my brother, I have been able to teach him how to do this arbitrage method. And I mean, he just over and over and over again has just, he just was not very good at being able to close the deal. He's very good at finding the deal, but he would come to me and he'd be like, hey man, can you talk to the owner? Can you go meet the owner? Can you show me how to be able to close the deal and get it done? So it's a way overlooked part of arbitrage that is super important that I'm going to go over. Getting the property ready for short-term rental. That's kind of the fun part. You get to let kind of your design brain go at it and make it as beautiful as you can and on a budget, because a lot of people, I mean, for me at least, I was broke. I was in college and I was getting my Airbnb ready. I was finding everything, a lot of stuff on Marketplace, a lot of stuff at Ross Dress for Less, TJ Maxx, a lot of discount places instead of going to like Pottery Barn and all these other places and getting brand new stuff for a lot of money. I'm also going to go over what needs to happen on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to be able to make sure that this business is running properly, because it needs to be able to run great so that you can get your 5-star reviews, so that your houses can stay booked and you can make good money. It's super important that we go over that just so that the properties are being taken care of and everything is moving smoothly. I'm also going to go over how to scale this method, using this method, how to get from one property up to where I'm at right now. I'm at 4 properties. I was at 5. Unfortunately, that property started to not do very well, and the owner, he started a family and he needed a bigger home, and it was a pretty big home. So he moved back in, and I'm honestly grateful for it because it was not making a ton of money by the end of when I had it. So being able to scale it from one property all the way up to 5 properties is another thing I'm going to go over today. And then going over my personal arbitrage portfolio, I want to be able to show you guys some real kind of stuff that I've been able to do and show you guys what works, and honestly some stuff that is struggling, because one of my properties that I have right now is struggling, and I'm going to go over why that might be. Honestly, I'm a little confused on why that property is underperforming, but I'm going to go over my thoughts on why it is underperforming and kind of show you guys that, hey, this is what you need to look for to have a successful one with the other ones. So the positives to arbitrage is you don't need a ton of startup capital. You're not purchasing a home. You don't need to go get a loan to purchase a $300,000 home. You don't need to, you don't need to put a down payment, a huge down payment on any property, because really all you're doing is you're getting first month rent and security deposit, which in some cases ranges from about $2,000 up to maybe $8,000. So you're not putting a down payment on even a $100,000 house being close to $20,000. You can have bad credit, or in my case, I had no credit. I was an 18-year-old that had no credit. I was out of high school. I was in college for 2 months. I had no credit. I had just opened up a student credit card, and all I was doing is I was just explaining the situation and showing the owners that, hey, these are the benefits to arbitrage, and I promise it's going to make money because Airbnb is huge. Short-term rentals are huge in our location where we are in Asheville, Buncombe County, Black Mountain, North Carolina. So being able to show the positives makes the homeowner kind of glued to those positives. And once you're able to kind of get them stuck on those positives, they kind of overlook other things like you having not great credit or you having no credit at all. They liked my energy. They were I was also able to show them my mom's successful Airbnbs that she owns, and they pretty much were like, "Hey, yeah, let's give it a run. Let's try it. We love your energy. We love that you're young, trying to get after it. Let's go for it." And all of them, I was able to deliver and over deliver in making them happy, which is huge. Another positive is that you don't own the property. And what I mean by that is you don't have to take care of big ticket items like being able to redo a roof, redo an HVAC system. You don't have to replace a refrigerator. You don't have to replace flooring or any damage, like major damages that aren't happening from the guests. Because things happen to houses. I mean, we all live in either a rental or in a home that we own, and things happen. The other day, my mom's electrical system kind of went kaput in her house, and she's having to rewire her house. So um, you don't have to worry about that if you're arbitraging someone's property. If the power goes out and the house needs to be rewired, that's on the homeowner. And also in that case, you are able to kind of negotiate some rent if some things need to happen and it's going to take a long time to happen. Um, for instance, my new construction house that I have in Weaverville, or Woodfin rather, that property had an HVAC system that shut off, and I talked to the owner, and she was gracious enough to get on it immediately and help me get that replaced, and none of it came out of my pocket because obviously I don't own the property. It's her property. She's making a lot of money per month off of me. The house needs to be able to heat and cool, and she was able to take care of it super quickly, and that house is great. The other thing I'd like to say is arbitrage is a lot of fun. For me, I have a lot of fun being able to go out and find the properties. I like being able to talk to people. I love being able to do the interior design on these properties, being able to furnish them and make them look really pretty. I like being able to communicate with my guests and really being one-on-one with each guest to make sure that each of them have a five-star stay. That's what I really like about the short-term rental business is you're able to have that one-on-one connection with people coming to the area. You're able to tell them about your favorite dining areas. You're able to say, hey, here's some really good hiking spots that I've grown up going to. I think you guys would have a great time being able to check out these certain areas of town. And then they get really happy and they leave you a five-star review, and five-star review boosts your property up the algorithm, and you make a lot of money. So it's fun. I enjoy it. That's why I'm still doing it today. If I didn't enjoy it, I'd probably not have my properties that I still have. Um, the other positives to arbitrage are you make a really quick cash return on your investment. Just for example, my first property, I put about $15,000 between first month rent, security deposit, and furnishing the property. It was all in for about 15,000, and I think I made $15,000 cash flow in about 4 months. So I was able to pay for everything in about 4 months of that property running. So from then on, for the rest of the year, because I only had that property 1 year, I was making cash, and I had a whole lot of furniture that I purchased that I could either move into a different property once my year lease was up, or I could resell or whatever. I ended up putting it into my property up in Boone, and I didn't have to spend quite as much money on furnishing that property. Because if you're going to make this a business, sometimes your leases run up, sometimes they don't. But when they do, and you have furniture to set up your next Airbnb, not all furniture fits every single property, but I've been able to kind of make each of my bedrooms kind of look super similar, and they're kind of interchangeable with the furniture that I have. And the other positive I'd like to say about arbitrage, if you do a really good job and your homeowner really enjoys what you are doing with the property, your landlord, they will either refer you to friends of theirs that have more properties, or they're going to ask that you take over more of their rental properties that they have. And for one instance, I have a lady in Black Mountain that I rent 2 big cabins from, and she owns 30 rentals in Black Mountain, Swannanoa area. And she's slowly saying, hey, Aiden, hey, Aiden, hey, Aiden, I want to give this property to you. I want you to Airbnb this property. Your properties that you already run are so beautiful. They look better than they've ever looked in 20 years. I want you to take over my other ones, make them look pretty, and run them smoothly because they hardly get used. If we can go on to the next slide, that would be great. I'd love to go over the negatives. The negatives to arbitrage right now that I've seen is that you need to choose the right property. Choosing the right property is crucial in the Airbnb space, because right now, on that second point, our market is super oversaturated. So really what I've kind of shot for with the properties that I still have and properties that I am still looking for, with what the landlords are kind of saying, hey, I want, my friend has this, would this work for you? Or, hey, I have this, would this also work for you? I have to say, I'm sorry, but the numbers really just don't make sense for me. It's what I've been aiming for as an investor in our market for short-term rental is big properties that sleep a lot of heads, because there's not as much of them as regular 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom properties. I try and shoot for that 4-bedroom to 5-bedroom property, or I try and find something unique. I own an A-frame in Hendersonville. It's probably my second most successful Airbnb, and it's not huge. I mean, it's 1,300 square feet, but it is arguably my most successful Airbnb just because of its unique factor. Cabins do very well. I would still shoot for having a large cabin. Everyone's wanting to come to the mountains. They're wanting to have a cabin stay by the river on a mountain. They want view. If your property has views, that's another thing, is maybe it's just kind of a run-of-the-mill house, but if you have big time views, if you have sunset views, that property will work. And even if it's just a regular house, if you are able to really make the interior design, make it look really pretty, kind of catch the eye of everybody scrolling through Airbnb, and really highlight the benefits to your property is the views, and always having a hot tub is crucial. But getting back to the negatives is our market is very oversaturated. A couple of my Airbnbs, they've all kind of plummeted with in terms of their occupancy. It's been fine because my big properties, they really kind of have long weekend stays, and I'm able to do kind of like a half listing kind of stay at those big properties to kind of lock bedrooms to make it smaller. And sometimes I get my midweeks booked and sometimes I don't. But I'm making enough money on the weekends that it still makes sense, and I'm still making a profit at the end of the month. But it is getting a lot tighter now. I don't want to say, hey guys, arbitrage doesn't work, because it does. I have 4 properties that all make me money at the end of each month. It's just getting tighter, and you really have to choose the right property. A negative, which I also had as a positive, is you don't own the property. You don't get any of the positive benefits of owning the property. You're paying down rent. You're not paying down a mortgage. So at the end of 30 years, you don't own the house. At the end of 5 years, you don't own the house. You don't own the house. So you're not getting any of that positive benefit from owning a home. All the properties here in Asheville, Buncombe County, Black Mountain, they're all appreciating at astronomical rates. So owning a home is huge. That's what I'm shooting for now, is I'm aiming for going kind of moving from arbitrage over to owning, which was kind of my game plan from the beginning. But arbitrage is a great starting point in real estate just because of the aspect of not having startup capital to be able to own a home. So you're able to start your real estate career while still not having all the tools that you need to be able to own a property. Um,
Hey, Aiden.
Another negative is that it's a very full-time job. I would say it's very hard to be able to have a kind of 9 to 5 job and be able to arbitrage properties. I know some people that have been able to do it and are successful with it, but it's a very full-time job. Once I started doing it and I got to my like second, third property, I mean, it became my life. I love that it's my life because it's what I love to do. But there's a lot of things that go into um, keeping your Airbnb running and running smoothly. If you want it to be successful, you have to put the time in to be able to make it successful. There's
Aiden,
a lot of it. Yes.
sorry, there are just a few questions relative to the landlord agreement and kind of your last point about not owning the property. I didn't mean to
Yes.
cut you off. I just wanted to get to these as they relate kind of to what you're talking about right now.
Sure thing.
So the first one here, is there anything in your agreement slash lease with the landlord that makes the landlord perform any maintenance items in a timely fashion, since it is an area where many tenants complain about their landlords?
That's a great question. Uh, I have a really personal relationship with all of my landlords. I don't have anything in my lease agreements with my landlords. I mean, just for example, the lady who's my landlord in Black Mountain, who owns the 2 cabins, um, she's in my phone as my Mama Linda, because she's like a second mother. She's fantastic, and she looks at me as a son. I go over to her house and have meals sometimes. Um, I really try and build a really tight bond with these homeowners. I send them Christmas presents. I send them happy birthday presents all the time, just to make sure that they're happy and I'm thinking about them. I send them texts every once in a while saying, "Hey, just thinking about you. How you been?" Just kind of stuff like that. So when things like that come up, things that need to be fixed, they're like, "Yeah, we'll take care of that. We'll drop everything and we'll be able to take care of that." And they want their house. Most landlords want their house to be in a good condition. They don't want it to start just going downhill. Those aren't the properties that I'm renting. I'm not renting the kind of C, D kind of rentals. I'm renting A grade rentals, and these rentals need to stay in A grade shape. Or the property is going to start to decline in value. And my big thing is I want your property to stay in the highest value all the time. And another thing that I do is a part of my pitch is I'm like, hey, I renovate houses all the time. If there's something small, like I'm going to be in the property all the time, I can easily take care of it. I'm not going to call to say that a light bulb is burnt out. Can you come replace a light bulb? Or like a toilet's broken. I'm just going to go to Lowe's and I'm just going to install a new toilet. I know some people can't do that, but I have my own plumber. I have my own maintenance guy. I can say, hey, I'm just going to call him and just get it done ASAP. And I'm just going to send a text to my landlord saying, hey, I just want to let you know that this happened and I took care of it. It's all good. If you want to come take a check, come check on it this week, for sure. Come check on it. I'd love to show it to you, but it's taken care of. But the big ticket items, those big ticket items like a roof leak or like a washer dryer is broken or any other major appliances have just kind of stopped working. I just call and they take care of it usually within the week. to get that done. I don't have anything in place saying that they need to. I feel like that would make them kind of feel a little bit kind of iffy about it. I kind of just make everybody, I want everybody to be happy about the situation that's happening. And usually once it gets Airbnb ready, I I give them a walkthrough of the house and they're like, wow, this house has never looked this good since I've owned it. Um, they want to do anything to make sure that I stay as a tenant because I want to be their tenant as long as possible, and they want me to be their tenant as long as possible.
Awesome. And excuse me. To that point as well, something that you just mentioned is covering some of those kind of minor items just yourself. I know you made mention as well right there that, sometimes you can't do that in the context of a retirement account investor with those prohibited rules I mentioned earlier for the audience. In the scenario Aiden's laying out, if he were utilizing a retirement account to do these arbitrage, he would be outsourcing to his plumber, his handyman, not Aiden as an individual going and doing those quick short things, but actually just facilitating, kind of akin to a general contractor and a subcontractor relationship, just making sure the work's getting done, but not by a prohibited person to the retirement account that's either being the arbitrage coordinator or owning the property that's being arbitraged by someone like Aiden. So just to that effect, I know that none of the properties Aiden currently has under arbitrage are in a self-directed retirement account, but this is a really unique topic. Like we talked about earlier, it's a smaller barrier to entry that can be utilized by retirement account investors. It'd be more so a conversation with me separately to go through what your intent is, what your action plan would be, and make sure you're well versed in where the rules lie for that. So I just wanted to outline that because someone asked kind of to that effect. Getting back to the root other two questions that were asked relative to the landlord agreements, I'll just ask these two kind of in one and let you address them both relatively simultaneously, Aiden. Do your
Okay.
landlords charge you their standard rent, or are you paying above market rent? And then are you using a master lease on or the landlord's lease with special provisions added?
So those are both great questions. I am just looking on Zillow for these rentals. It's usually just market rent. If the property is a good property, maybe they're asking more. Um, Only in one instance, I have paid more than how much the landlord had it listed for, and that was the landlord out in Black Mountain, and she had the rental listed for 3,000 a month, and she had a lot of traction on that. And when I went out to go meet her at the property, because she was showing it to a handful of families, I went out there and I noticed there was a lot of people out there. There was a lot of people talking to her saying, hey, we want this, we want this, we want this. And I just kind of quietly I didn't even, I got my initial kind of look at the house while she was walking someone else through the house. And then I kind of just waited for her to be done with them. And when she was done with them, I was like, hey, I think this property is going to be really great for me. There's a couple things that like need to be done. I mean, there's a little bit of paint that needs to go on. And I was ultimately able to convince her to replace the entire kitchen on that house. But I was like, I really want this property to be mine. Like I think this would be a fantastic short-term rental. I'm telling her all the benefits to why it would be a short-term rental, and she was like, I don't think it'll work for this one. I have 30 properties. Maybe we can work something out in the future. And to be able to get that deal closed and to be able to build that relationship with her to get those other properties. I didn't want that to just kind of simmer out. I was like, hey, the numbers make sense for me. What if I wrote you I was so blunt when I was in front of her. I just said, hey, I have a check for $7,000. I can write it to you right now here in the driveway. I want this property. You're going to be happy with it. I want this property. So I pay rent for 3,500 a month on that house, and that one's my big money maker. That one, and the other one that she ended up renting to me down the line. Those two cabins are huge in Black Mountain. So I overpaid for that. I don't think that I overpaid. I think that I have a 5-year lease on that property and it's going to be making me money for a long time. And I'm really happy with it. So I was willing to pay that extra money to be able to get that deal closed.
So really
And
circumstantial,
yeah,
to
very,
just
very
to answer
circumstantial.
that person. Yeah.
It's
Uh,
not like people are renting, they're listing their properties on Zillow, hoping for someone to arbitrage it. I mean, some people kind of it's some people have unsuccessful Airbnbs that they list, and they're looking for someone to rent a furnished rental. They're not A lot of homeowners don't really know about the arbitrage method, so nobody's like trying to aim for someone to arbitrage it and they're trying to get more money. I have had a landlord at my Peacock retreat house. When he figured out that that is what I wanted to do, he tried to upcharge me another $300 a month. And I respectfully told him that, hey, the numbers really make sense at that $3,000 marker. Um, that is where my numbers make sense. And he ultimately just agreed to that $3,000 marker instead of the 3,300 that he was wanting.
Got it. Got it. Well, that was the questions we have at the moment. I will turn you back over to the negative slide. And just to be mindful of the audience time and everything, we've got about 10 to 15 minutes left. So just want to make sure that we're trying to keep it right around an hour.
Okay.
But please proceed as as your pace, as what you want to, and we'll get through things as we go.
Yeah, yeah, and I can do that. Really, the last negative that I would like to kind of voice to everyone is that rent is really high. I kind of got into that a little bit with the like throwing out those numbers like $3,500 a month, 3,000 a month, 4,000 a month. That's a lot of money that you're not getting back. So instead of paying down a mortgage around like $2,800 or $1,700, rent is that 3,000, that 3,500, that 4,000. That is kind of a negative that I've seen, is a lot of your cash flow kind of goes out the window when you're paying rent. Um, but we can go on to the next slide. So how to find good arbitrage properties. How I got started was going on Zillow, just rentals in my area. Um, I've been born and raised here in Asheville, North Carolina. My mom was a real estate agent. I rode around in the car when I was 5 years old, all the way up through high school, as she was showing properties to people. I know the streets really, really well. I know the locations. I know what streets are what, and I can kind of look at a map of Buncombe County and can kind of zoom in on that Zillow map and look for rentals that may work. I mean, there's just not a lot of properties out there, just in general, and then let alone properties that are going to work for arbitrage. They pop up, and any rentals that pop up, they get gone within the day. So you have to check Zillow all the time. When I was actively looking for arbitrage properties because I wanted more and I didn't have any coming to me, I was scouring Zillow probably 5 times a day. I was probably checking Zillow, saying, what is on Zillow? What is on Zillow? What is on Zillow? And a couple of the properties the first one that I got was it was listed for 9 hours, and I called the guy immediately, and I was able to meet him the next day, and we got that closed within the next day. So a lot of the situations are like that, where these rentals are getting put up on Zillow, they're getting put up on rent.com, they're getting put on these websites, and they're getting gone within the day. And I also check places like Facebook Marketplace. I've been able to find some very good deals. I found a property that I ended up purchasing on Facebook Marketplace. But people do put their rentals on there just because they're older people and they're trying to get away from the masses. They're trying to find a good renter, and they just don't want to put it on Zillow for some reason because they just don't want to use Zillow. But you can find some goodies on Facebook Marketplace.
And Aiden,
Another,
with the
yes.
geographic location, a question came in on your thoughts about long-term or long-distance arbitrage or long distance management. You had mentioned earlier, maybe just very, very quickly expand on, did you start this process while you were down in Florida at Florida State, or was it when you were back up in the area? And what's your kind of furthest distance? I know you're centered in Asheville, and probably our audience, which is more nationally, derived, aren't super hyper aware of the Asheville area. How far out are you going for your furthest property? I know Boone's like an hour and a half to 2 hours away. Hendersonville's like 30 to 45 minutes away. What is your comfortable distance for an arbitrage investor? Just kind of as quickly as you could sum that up.
Yeah, so the farthest I would kind of reach out is probably Boone has been a little bit too far for me, but that Hendersonville kind of like honestly up to Burnsville, so probably within like an hour of where you live is where I would recommend. If you can hire out everything and you're not needing to be boots on the ground at all, then and it still makes money at the end of the day, or at the end of the month, then by all means, long distance is fine. If you have people in that area that you trust, then that's all good. When I started, I was going in with a partner on my first deal, and I was going down to Florida. And then the partnership didn't really work. So I ended up coming back, and I had already gotten my second one within like a few weeks of my first one. And then I ended up purchasing a property a week after that. So I kind of had three properties all kind of coming together at once. And I was down there for like maybe a month or two, and I came back because it was too much for me just as an 18-year-old to do all of that and not be here. I was putting a lot of it on my mom, and just having it close is huge because being able to check on those properties is crucial.
And I think your answer there, in itself, like if you are boots on the ground, keeping it within that, reasonable driving distance, and if you're not boots on the ground and you have others covering that for you, it kind of expands your surface area with respect to where you're searching for properties. And in itself, that really lends, itself to your next slide here on actually running the numbers, like what works, because if you're paying a management firm or someone to do that boots on the ground stuff, it's cutting into your margins, obviously. So I'll just push you into the running the numbers slide here. Just
Yeah,
again, with
it
respect to
sure
kind of
does.
keeping it with the time.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to look at how much this property is gonna generate, because if you're going to pay someone like a manager and you're going to pay someone like a cleaning staff to be able to take care of everything, if you're paying a maintenance person to go out there and check on the house, um, if you're not wanting a management company to take care of the property and you just kind of have like friends of yours or trusted family members or anything like that to check on the property, obviously if you have a self-directed um, IRA that you're using, you're going to need to hire a lot of that out to be able to do maintenance stuff on the property. You really need to make sure that the numbers work, because once you start hiring stuff out, like being able to do lawn care, being able to like a cleaning staff, you're gonna have and a manager's gonna typically charge around 20% of the income that comes in. So and that's not after all of your expenses. That's before your expenses. So you really need to make sure that the property is going to work. Um, you need to be able to figure out if the property is going to work. I check the websites, Airbnb and VRBO, and there's a really fun website, airdna.com, that I was able to use. It's not extremely precise, but it does give you kind of a basic idea of a market that you're looking into, on if a property might work or not. And it gives you links to the Airbnb and VRBO calendars and properties in the area. So you can check and see if these properties are staying booked or not. You have to do a lot of time. You have to put in a lot of time to be able to make sure that the property is going to work or not. But some things that, just so you guys know, you need to account for is your rent. One, that's your biggest expense. You need to, if your property is in kind of like a city area in Asheville, you're not allowed to have it within the city limits. But that's just a law here in Asheville. There's laws. So you have to look at your water, you have to look at your sewer, you have to look at your electricity, your internet, your trash pickup, all that. Going over, oh, I just X'd out of it. Sorry. Going over how to close the deal, I touched this at the beginning a little bit. Just being able to, and we can go on to the next slide.
Sorry, there was a lapse in the audio. I switched to the closing the deal slide and then your audio paused. So I just switched back. It should be on how to close the deal slide right now. Or did you want on the next slide, the getting the property short-term rental ready?
Closing the deal is fine.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that.
So to close the deal, really what you want to do is you want to explain all the positives to what Arbitrage has to offer. What I do is I go, hey, I try and be upfront as possible on the phone. I really don't like to be on the phone because being in person, you're able to explain it a lot better. You're talking to someone on the phone. A lot of people don't really like talking on the phone. So I really try and text the person first and then try and get an in-person meeting and then kind of go from there. But if you're really trying to get the deal quick, making that phone call is crucial. Being able to be upfront the whole time and being able to just give them your little spiel about arbitrage, saying, hey, this property is going to be professionally cleaned twice, maybe 3 times a week. You as a landlord or homeowner can get into this property on an almost weekly basis because my property is not going to be booked all the time. I want you to be able to know that your property is in good shape all the time. That has been kind of the big seller for me, is saying, hey, if you want to check on your house, by all means, come check on your house, just not while guests are there, which most of the time my properties are just booked on the weekends. So midweek, I'm able to go through the properties with my homeowners, and we're able to make a little punch list of things that they want me to knock out, they want them to knock out, just to elevate the property a little bit more and keep it in good condition. And they ask my 2 cents on what should be done to the property because I've already made their property look really good. So that's after you close the deal, obviously. But to close the deal is explaining that, hey, we need to. I want you to come check on your property because I know how much you care about this house. I like to be able to offer the property to homeowners, to my homeowners, to just say, hey, if you guys want to, on my days that it's not booked, I like to be able to just say, hey, if you guys want to go over there and relax in the hot tub or go out and grill, that's perfectly fine. That's another opportunity for them to go check on the house and enjoy the house that they own while it's still being long-term rented to me. So that's just one thing that has been able to make my landlords really happy with me, and we've been able to have a really good relationship.
Awesome. All right, we'll go on to the next one, getting the property short-term rental ready.
So getting the property short-term rental ready is huge. What I do is I get a lot of my stuff off Amazon. Amazon is amazing. You're able to get brand new stuff super affordably. What I try and do for each of my short-term rentals is there's some stuff that needs to be brand new. You can't get everything used on Marketplace and Goodwill and all that. You need to be able to get brand new bed frames, or sometimes you can get a good used bed frame that's lightly used, but I like to be able to get new bed frames. They've never been used. Brand new mattresses is a must. Being able to have mattress protectors is huge. Brand new sheets, brand new comforters, all of that you can get on Amazon. You can get good quality, and you can kind of gauge your quality level as well in being able to save money. Getting a new couch is also huge. Sometimes you can get kind of a very lightly used couch. I don't recommend it. I recommend going to places like West Elm and Crate and Barrel Outlet. That's places where I've been able to get a lot of affordable or really expensive couches on a budget because they're the outlet stores and they have just pieces and parts, and you're able to kind of get the rest of the part online, and you're saving a ton of money. So that's what I've been able to do. Having TVs in the bedrooms is huge. People are on vacation. They want to watch TV because they're just relaxing. Fully stocked kitchen. I like to get all my stuff brand new from places like, I mean, Costco, Sam's Club, or Walmart. You can get there's different levels of stuff. Obviously, I try and get more of the higher quality stuff from these bulk stores, but you can do it on an affordable budget. I also go to Dollar Tree, crazy enough. Dollar Tree, you can get pretty decent cups and bowls and plates at Dollar Tree for, I mean, $1.25 now a piece, and I mean, it's a great deal to be able to and it's all the same stuff all the time. So you're able to replace items. I don't like being able to get really nice luxury sets from these stores around town, just because stuff breaks all the time. I like having stuff that looks like it's expensive, but it really just costs $1.25, and I'm really able to just easily kind of go in and just replace it and it not feel out of place. I try and have a property or a hot tub at each of my properties. That is a huge aspect of Airbnbs or short-term rentals that is overlooked a little bit. It's really expensive to buy these hot tubs, but it increases your occupancy. It increases your amount of guests that you have tremendously. I don't have one property without a hot tub. It just helps me get my top dollar and helps me get more bookings and everything. And then over here on the right, I kind of just listed out a couple things that I have in all my stuff. I mean, dining table and chairs. You got coffee maker is huge because people drink coffee. I personally don't drink coffee, but I feel like everybody drinks coffee, so having a coffee maker is huge. Bathroom supplies, going to places like Dollar Tree, you can get a lot of stuff for bathrooms, like toothpaste, toothbrushes, small trash cans, small trash bags. I mean, you're really trying to make it feel like they don't need to bring anything other than their clothes and themselves to be able to stay in your house. You're trying to stock this house to make it as accommodating as possible. I put US map down just because the US map um, is a thing that I have in all my properties. I think I have it right over here in this property that I'm in right now. It's just a thing you put a little pin in from where you're traveling from. It's kind of a cool way that all the guests can kind of interact with each other. I try and have wow factor items at all my properties, and I try and emphasize that in my photographs of my Airbnbs to catch the eye of people on the platform, because there's, like I said, the market is very oversaturated. Being able to have wow factors to say, hey, that is really cool. It gets your house booked more often, and that's huge. And then having professional photos of your properties is also crucial, because iPhone photos just don't cut it, and it's not going to make your property look good unless you have professional photos.
And just real quick, you kind of go into some of it there with your answers and some of those items. Person asked, is your guest avatar like a family? I know in this area where we live, you are probably primarily looking for traveling families, right? People on vacation specifically, for at least this area and your specific portfolio, correct?
Yes, for this area, I try and aim for families with my bigger properties, family gatherings. Um, a lot of people are coming to the mountains. It's couples. I get a lot of like groups of couples coming together and booking a place. Like it's a group of friends that they graduated from college. It's all of their like husband and wife are all kind of together, and they're booking a place for all of them to come to the mountains and stay. They're wanting a big, nice, cool cabin. They're wanting a nice, big, cool, modern house, and coming together and splitting the cost of it all and getting all that space instead of getting like a whole bunch of different hotel rooms because that's much more expensive.
In this area as well, just for our audience, it does lend itself to, as Aiden mentioned earlier in the presentation, some of the larger heads that you can sleep, because we do have a decent amount of like bachelor and bachelorette parties as well, and having those larger cabins in this portfolio is definitely advantageous in this area. That may not be your case if you're listening from somewhere in Washington State or somewhere in the Midwest, but just apply that to what you're actually looking for and what clientele you're looking to serve as your guest avatar.
That is true. And I do also, I mean, even with my A-frame, it can sleep 8 people. It has the ability to sleep 8 people, but a lot of the time it's just a unique stay. Once I drop my price down midweek, it gets booked by just couples all the time, and people, it's just a couple spending money on a really cool stay. And a lot of times I do just get couples booking my whole house, and it's great because they're spending that money. But I do get a lot of just single couples coming together and booking my places.
All right. And noticing the time, we're at a little over an hour and 5 minutes or so. If we could try to push through these last few, not like speeding, but just with a little bit more cadence than earlier, so we can make sure our audience has a chance to catch it all, or can watch the recording later back.
Yeah, for sure. And just to go over the daily, weekly, monthly time commitment that you're going to be putting towards arbitrage business is what I have had to do is to be able to make this a successful business, you need to be able to communicate with your guests as quickly as possible. If they have any questions, if they're struggling to get into the house, being able to be there for them all hours of the day. I know that sounds super frustrating, but all hours of the day. I get calls sometimes 2 in the morning saying, hey, we were traveling, we got here late, and we're having a hard time getting into the house. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, the code is blah, 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 blah. But being able to be available 24 hours so that your guests are taken care of is huge. Answering inquiries as quickly as possible is also massive because Airbnb does dock your time on your responses on the application, and you need to answer those questions as quick as possible because these people they're looking at many different properties and they're asking questions to see if this property is going to work for them. You answer those questions as quickly as possible to be able to get that booking, and you're able to pre-approve them and they're able to book the place and they're going to be happy. Cleaning the properties, being able to, for me, how I got started is I was doing a lot of the sweat equity myself, and I was cleaning the properties in between guests, and so that I knew that it was okay. I wasn't hiring out any of my friends, and I wasn't hiring out a company to be able to eat that cost. Originally, I was trying to maximize my money that was coming in so that I could eventually own properties. So if you get started and you really want to maximize the amount of money that you're going to make, I would say cleaning your own properties is important, but you need to make sure that it's done well, because where I'm at right now is I'm hiring out all the cleaning because as a 20-year-old guy, I am not the best cleaner in the world, so I'm hiring out to very good cleaning staff, ladies, and that take care of it perfectly. And
And Aiden,
it's amazing.
just on that, before we move on to the next slide, someone did ask, how automated are your systems? So you just kind of explained to us, you had a system that you were doing directly and learned just based on your time, energy, value. It's easier for you, or you've gotten to a point of growth where you're scaling up and automating some of that. What about those responses? Do you have any automated system for that, or are you the one physically receiving the text message at 2 in the morning when they can't get in their door and so stuff like that?
So I'm able to find these different kind of groups, looking on Marketplace and hiring, just cleaning people to be able to take care of the property, just so I don't have to take care of it. I think there's not there's not really a good system other than just hiring a management company to be able to take care of the communicating with guests. I think that's a great one-on-one thing that if you're going to be in the business, I think you should just take care of yourself, just to have that one-on-one connection with your guests. It doesn't sound like you're a company. A lot of companies don't take care of everything 24 hours out of the day. Being able to be available for your guests is huge, and they feel important. So I guess I'll just jump into how to scale, just straight out of that. So how I've been able to scale it is I've been able to do really successful with the Airbnbs that I have now. And I've been able to go from one and then calling on the next one and saying, hey, I have one that's already successful in this business model. Come take a look at it. I come and show them if they have the time. And they're like, hey, this is really great. This is a good idea. The house hardly gets used. All the guests are just going out and they're eating dinner. They're not using my kitchen that I spent money on. This is fantastic. They're not really using the laundry because they're on vacation. They brought enough clothes during their few day vacation. They're not using my laundry. If someone was renting a home long term, they would be using all of these things almost every day. So they're just not in the house. They're really just in the house to sleep and watch TV in the living room. And I'm providing all of that stuff. So really the homeowner, their house is staying in the best condition that it possibly could be in. So once they see that, they love it, and then they tell their friends about it. So the lady in Black Mountain, she wants me to keep doing more of her stuff in Black Mountain. My house in Woodfin got me my house in Fairview because she spoke to one of her best friends, and he said, hey, I heard from Kelly that you're doing a great job. I really want you to do that with my property because it's a brand new house and I want it to stay looking like a brand new house. I don't want to put a renter in it and the walls get torn up and my kitchen gets used every single day. I said, I just don't want that. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic. So a lot of the business is now coming to me instead of me having to go out and get the business. Obviously, I still look on Zillow every once in a while to see, hey, wow, that's a Mac Daddy cabin for only like $3,000 a month. I should call about that and try and make that a deal. But a lot of the business is coming to me, and I'm trying to shift over towards owning. But once you get one or two, it's very easy to be able to scale up to 5, 6, 7 in terms of that. And getting those systems in place is huge to be able to make sure that you're able to handle that load of houses.
All right. Just with respect to the time, again, we try to keep these webinars right about an hour. We're at about an hour 15 right now. And we actually are at a great quote stopping point here because the next session, Aiden was going to break down his deals. And just with respect to the audience's time, if you want to see those deals or speak with Aiden directly about them, please reach out to him directly. We're going to kind of use this as a sizzler or a teaser to reach Aiden directly to learn more about his deals or receive a copy of the slides with the deals. I'm going to flip back to our contact information so you could reach out to Aiden or I as you see fit. And I've got one final question for you, Aiden, as we wrap up. Someone asked if you have a target minimum net cash flow per month per property, or if that varies depending on the properties. You've mentioned, you know, having some smaller properties, having some of the larger ones. What is your kind of target cash flow? And is it based on a property? Is it based on a net, like, hey, I have all of this overhead time and energy I'm putting into this arbitrage. I need to make at least X factor in it. If you want to address that while we're giving people a chance to take down our contact info, and then just we'll kind of round home and get us wrapped up after that. So yeah, if you just want to address your target minimum cash flow per month, and if that varies per property or in any other capacity, and then like I said, we've got the slides on your specific deals. I'm going to implore the audience to reach out to you directly to get copies of those slides and talk to you more about what you're doing and kind of promote, you know, again, everyone's ability to reach you and learn a little bit more or see what they can't do to work with you as well.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, so the target kind of cash flow I kind of shoot for each month is obviously it varies time of the year. People are traveling certain places certain times of the year. So I kind of try and shoot for around an average of between kind of 1500 to 1500 plus. If at least it's making $1,500 a month, then I think it makes sense for the amount of time that you're going to be putting into it. That's what I kind of shoot for, just to be safe, so I'm not losing money. Um, Obviously, there's been some months where I haven't been able to make the amount to be able to pay rent, but I've done very well in other months to be able to more than cover that. So a lot of months I've been able to do numbers like upwards of 15 to $20,000 months, and some months with those same properties, right around $5,000. And that's not cash flow; that's just generating income. But um, sometimes it varies a lot. So I try and shoot for around 1,500 plus a month just to get started, because that does kind of give you a good basis if you have at least like 2 arbitrage properties going. If you're able to cash flow around 1,500 bucks per month, then you're able to kind of start making really good money.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it up now. I did want to share with you one other item that one of the participants posted a little bit earlier, and I honestly echo and agree with the sentiment this person shared. It says, Aiden, you're a very impressive young man. I'm at the other end of the age spectrum, and you inspire me to do more. I'm about to get involved with rental arbitrage again, and your presentation has been informative. Continued success. I think we can all that have been here listening agree with that. I mean, being someone so much younger than a lot of the investors that are kind of in this world, but really putting your boots on the ground and getting started and finding what works for you, and then transitioning that, using that as a stepping stool, like you said, to get into bigger properties and more ownership and long-term holds. It's very inspiring. And that's part of the reason I reached out to you and asked you to kind of bring this educational content to light, because we don't really have at Advanta IRA too much, if at all, any education on arbitrage investing. So really appreciate you coordinating this with me. I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future to dive a little bit deeper and maybe see where your growth has gone between now and whenever we have you on again. But again, thank you so much. And for the great education you brought, I'm sure you'll have plenty of people reach out as they review this webinar and want to learn more or want to see some of your projects and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. That means a lot. Thank you for whoever said that. And thank you, Corey, for being able to host me. I love being able to share what I've been able to do and information that I have, just in that with that business model to help other people either say, hey, I think that's a great idea, I'm going to try and do that. And for other people saying, hey, this is super, this might not work in my area, but it is great information to help me say, hey, it's not going to work in my area. Thank you for the information and all that. But yeah, it's great being able to share all the information that I have.
Well, you heard it here, people. It may be a good fit for you. It may not. The best thing to do is learn as much as you can and figure that out for yourself. Again, we are talking about the industry and nature of self-directed investing at its core. So always making sure you're putting that to play and realizing where and how you can take better advantages of your funds, whether they're retirement funds or non-retirement in the aspect of arbitrage investing. Thank you all for participating today. Check us out for our upcoming educational content as well, and we look to see you next time.